But let's get right into it. So number one, what does the settlement actually say, right? The settlement primarily affects how offers of compensation are displayed in the MLS, not the actual compensation agreements between sellers, listing agents, and buyer brokers, right? And so in the news, and I'll get into this in number two, they're saying things like there's no more standard 6% commission. There's never been a standard commission ever before. Right? We talk about this standard 6, or people talk about this standard 6. Sellers have always had the opportunity to find a brokerage or an agency that will provide a service based on what they're willing to pay. There's never been a standard whatsoever. And so even you as a real estate agent, you may have thought that because that's always been this thing that's kind of been said in the background, and you may think it's factual yourself. It's not the case whatsoever. It's not the case whatsoever, right? Number two, the settlement eliminates private offers of compensation within the MLS, aligning with practices in the commercial real estate world, right? So in commercial real estate, you'll see that in most cases, you're not going to see an advertised commission. You have to reach out to that broker, that agent who's listing that property, and what you'll do is you're going to ask all the questions, of course, that you would, that your buyer is, curious about, and that you may be curious about, to make sure the property is really the right fit to even move forward in any kind of direction with. And part of that conversation in commercial is, hey, what is the compensation? What are you guys paying for me bringing a willing and able buyer? Well, that's going to be the same thing how it's going to be in real estate. What they're doing is they're taking out the commission from the MLS. And so all of these headlines and all these news stories going on are really scrambling the facts into these like crazy, discussions in regards to there's no more buyer's agents and there's not going to be no more of this and no more of that, right? And so what's going to be happening is you're going to have to ask the agent, is there a commission that's being offered to a buyer's agent? And if not, yes, you're going to have an agreement with your buyer that they would be willing to pay you a certain fee if that compensation is not going to be given by the listing agent or the seller or whoever had you, right? And so that's always really kind of been the case, and we'll break that down a little bit further as we move down. Yes, sir.
Before you move on, could you give like an example of like making that phone call to a client of like, hey, they're not offering any commission to the agent, this is the commission if you were to go with this property?
Yeah, I think that we already have that conversation on a regular basis, right? Because there is listings that offer, let's say, a 1% commission, and the other 99% of properties that you may be showing are offering, let's just say, 3% commission, right? And so if that's not the case, but that property fits the bill and that property is really important for that buyer, then it just comes down to you just explaining, hey, Andrew, so I am getting the offer prepared. I've asked the listing agent several questions in regards to what the contract may need to look like, what our perspective is on what we want to offer, how we want to negotiate. However, based on the current offering from the listing agent, they're only offering 1% commission. Okay, and my minimum standard that I work is blank, right? It's that agent's minimum standard. An agent's allowed to have their own minimum standard for what they're willing to work with. Now, can they collude with a bajillion other agents, say we're not doing it for less than this? Of course not. Real estate agents can barely even get along when they're doing a sales contract with another agent. The fact that they think real estate agents are colluding together so where we get a standard commission is just nonsensical, right? You can't even get agents to talk nice to each other unless you get a certain amount of margaritas in a room. You know what I mean? And so and even that probably becomes, it probably backfires, right? And so it really comes down to going, hey, the difference between what they're offering and what I'm willing to work for is this. If we can negotiate this type of a deal for you on this transaction, are you willing to compensate me that 2% difference that I want? Right? And they can say yes or they can say no. And then you can move forward based on that. And if they see value in your negotiation skills and the services that you offer and your ability to not only negotiate and handle a lot of these things, but actually get the deal to the closing table, they're going to be willing to pay you, right? Now, I'm going to get into some more information in here where you're going to see that things may change, but I don't think that's going to be the way this plays out. And a lot of it depends on the market. It depends on the market, what's happening, and again, I'll get ahead of myself because there's going to be more information and I'm really going to get into that with, okay? Now, what the settlement actually says, it also requires a signed buyer's agency agreement before showing properties, a practice that's already common, right? Who in here gets a buyer's representation agreement with their buyers? And for example, Alex, does it already say the commission in there that you're going to be working for?
Yep, I already always put the 3%. And I've had them sometimes question that or be like, wait, so we have to pay that if the seller doesn't? And at that point, So far, I've explained to them, in my personal experience, this has never happened. If you find the house you love and the buyer and the seller is not offering that, there are ways that we can negotiate, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
And how many times have you been in that position where the buyer had to pay you a commission?
Yeah, exactly.
Zero, right? And a lot of this, guys, is like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean? Like, who really is paying for the commission here? All right? Now, again, I'll get into more of this because I want to break down the misinformation real quick. But like, what came first, the chicken or the egg on this deal? The seller's paying a commission, right, to a listing agent. That listing agent is saying, I'm willing to give whatever amount I want to that buyer's agent, right? And now that buyer is going to come and buy this property. So if the agent, like let's say for example, one of you reach out to a seller in the marketplace where you want to serve, and you're having a great conversation with that seller, and that seller says, hey, I don't know if I want to sell right now, right? And you say, hey, no problem. A lot of my clients right now, they don't know if it's a good time for them to sell or if they should be waiting, and maybe you should wait. However, what is going to be a good time today or tomorrow, or we can go over every single statistic in the marketplace, go over all the pros and cons of working right now on getting this property sold or moving this thing to a later date, right? If there's enough benefits for that seller that seller didn't know about, then that seller may make a decision to go ahead and sell now and reap the benefits of selling now, right? And so who really created the commission at that point? The seller, the buyer, the agent? The agent kind of did, because maybe that was a list. Maybe if that person didn't have the right information, they would have never put that property on the market, and that property would have never been purchased by that buyer. Does that make sense? And so there is this issue where it's like, well, who's paying the commission? It's really a group effort that's paying the commission in order to get the seller what they want and the buyer what they want. And things have actually been working great this way. A lot of you guys may not be old enough to remember, but there used to be dual agency like in the 90s. And what would happen is that the listing agent would have a commission and they would be a dual agent. So the buyer would come in, and then there was this issue of like, well, is this agent representing the seller? Are they representing the buyer? And in reality, the commission, all these things came about to create more clarity, right? But now you can see that these attorneys and higher powers that may be are trying to change how things are done in the real estate business, right? You guys following me on this so far? Okay, because I want to be clear, and I know there's a lot of stuff to discuss on this, and I don't want to be in a position where I may not be as clear as needed, right? So what kind of misinformation is being broadcasted as we speak? Well, there is an uncertainty and confusion about how the decoupling of commissions will affect the way real estate agents conduct business. Some believe that home prices are going to come down, while others argues that the sellers will just simply keep the savings by removing the buyer's agent commission. Agents are hiding properties from clients that were not offering a commission. But let's think about that. Part of this is the fact of like, oh, I'm only going to send properties to my buyers that offer a commission that I like. It's 2024. Who in here has buyers that are sending you the properties before you could even send them to them? Technology is rampant. The properties are listed everywhere. If you sent a list of properties, now you shouldn't do this, but if you sent a list of properties to a buyer that you have, and you sent 10 in this neighborhood and there's really 12, but those other 2 are not offering a commission, your client's going to find those properties. They're looking themselves, they're looking based on what you're sending them. The information is very transparent and out there. So I don't really think it really works the way that they think it's actually working. But that's part of the headlines that, hey, agents were hiding properties from from buyers that were not offering a commission. But again, I think that the technology world would differ with that, because I think that all those properties are listed on the MLS, are listed on all these properties that take the feed of the MLS, right? Some think this will eliminate the buyer's agent, right? There's these headlines saying that the buyer's agent is done for. Agents are going to be quitting the industry. Now, I do think that the fear will take agents out of the business, right? But I also would believe that what's going to happen is the agents who don't adapt and can't showcase their value to a buyer and or a seller are going to be in a bad position, and just like they've always been. If an agent, because for example, real quick, when the market was what it was 3-4 years ago when COVID was going crazy, it was a momentum-based market, meaning that there was so much demand and not enough supply that the market was just moving. There could be a real estate agent that had no real quality level of service. They could have no experience, could be very inexperienced, right? And they could list a property and it would sell in 2 seconds because the momentum of the market was crazy. It wasn't really based on skills. However, when you get outside of that market, and remember, that market was short-lived, maybe it was a couple of years, right? But it was a fluke, and it's not the norm. Typically, you're in a market where the supply and the demand is a little bit different than just we have 1 week of inventory on the market, right? So now we're in more of a skill-based market. Agents that are failing out of the business right now, guys, like think about this. If you were in this room and you're not doing the amount of deals that you would like to be doing, it's because you do not have the skill and the, I would say, action plan or level of execution to find more buyers and sellers to get the business that you're looking to achieve. And most likely you're going to be out of the business, right? And so whether you're in this room or you're across the United States, if you do not build up the level of skill you have, you're probably not going to be working with as much buyers and sellers as you would like, which is going to put you in the position of getting out of the business anyway. And so I think it's kind of the business as usual. I think the low-skilled agents in a market that is more normal are going to be getting out a lot sooner than they would have liked. Now, when the market was good and everybody was like, I gotta buy because the interest rates are low, okay, write a contract, offer as much as you can. The deal's probably gonna get done if it's the best offer on the table. There was a lot more sales taking place. There was 13, 14, 15,000 sales taking place each and every single month. Last month, it was like 8,000. So the market is not the same as it was. It's gonna be more skill-based, right? So what's more this misinformation that's being broadcasted, right? Some information states that the standard 6% commission is gone. Well, there has never been a standard commission to begin with, right? And so they're already trying to put agents or put the public in this position where they think that there used to be a standard commission. There has never been, like 50 years ago, right? I remember when my dad got in the business when I was 4 years old. When I was, early teens, watching my parents work, I remember my dad talking about companies. Oh man, all these flat fee companies are coming about where they'll list somebody's property for $500, right? Well, when the market is moving fast, because at that time the market was moving fast, anybody could get a loan in that time that I was talking about, right? There was a lot less things that should have been happening, and people could if you could fog a mirror up, you could buy a property in the early 2000s, right? And so, what was happening is that the market was booming. Remember, like homes in Florida would be worth like $200,000, then $600,000, then $900,000, and the market crashed. What happened? Well, what happened when that market crashed? All those companies, all those flat fee companies, most of them, they were out because they could not offer the level of service needed to get a property sold because the market was not in that position that it once was, okay? And so understand that anytime the market is good, there's gonna be these companies that come out there like that, but sellers have always had the option to work with those companies, right? And so what else do we have on here? So while there has never been a standard commission to begin with, sellers have always had the option of working with a realtor at a variety of cost points, and agents across the board charge differently based on the level of service they provide. Some information suggests that sellers no longer have to pay the buyer's agent. However, it is the listing agent who has been paying the buyer's agent. They charge a seller a fee, and from that fee are able to offer a buyer's agent commission. So in the media, we have all these things going on. These sellers don't have to pay a buyer's agent anymore. I guess it kind of makes sense, right? But in reality, it's always been the listing agent who says, okay, I'm charging you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, flat fee, whatever the case may be, and I'm gonna offer whatever I want to that buyer's agent, but it would be, I know in Texas, it's disclosed on the listing agreement. So I can go and list a seller's house right now, and I'm saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I charge 6% commission. Any other questions? No, I think that's fine. I think you offer a great service, and we wanna do business with you. Fair enough, right? Now on this next paper, it's gonna say what commission I'm offering to the buyer's agent. Now, because I'm the listing agent and I feel ABC about it, I'm gonna offer this commission. Are you guys okay with me offering that commission? And it's just me being transparent about what I'm gonna be doing about what I'm earning, or with what I'm earning, right? And that seller can go, yeah, offer 3%, offer 2%, whatever you wanna offer. If I'm paying you the 6, we trust you, pay the buyer's agent what you feel they're gonna be able to earn in order to provide the kind of buyer that we want them to bring to the table if they do bring a buyer, right? And that's kind of been how it is, but now if you watch the media and the headlines, it's all talking about, well, the sellers don't have to pay a commission anymore. It's the listing agent who the whole time since I've been in the business has been, setting, hey, this is what I feel my services are worth, and then based on that, I'm going to give a buyer's agent this amount. And we love giving buyer's agents commissions because they may help us bring the best offer to our clients, and our job, our fiduciary responsibility is to provide the best outcome to our clients. And if it means that we have to split our commission with the buyer's agent because that buyer may be better than the buyer that I know for the property, then I would rather pay that buyer's agent that commission to get my client the type of results that they're looking for, right? And that's kind of how it's been done. But if you watch the media, they have this thing kind of mismanaged in a different way, right? And so number three, what the information actually means for the real estate agent community. The commission being offered will no longer be displayed in the private MLS. That's really what we're saying here. Like, no matter what the headlines are saying, no matter what's taking place, what's really happening here is the commission is not going to be disclosed on the MLS any longer. And now you have to call the listing agent as you're asking an assortment of other questions to look out for information for that property. You will ask, hey, what are you guys offering for commission? Okay? Yeah. It's just that. It's just that. It's just that, right? But that's what's happening on the media from all this stuff, right? Next thing is, based on the information and what it actually means for the real estate agent community, is agents will need to educate consumers about the changes and overcome the objections separating professionals from amateurs, okay? You're gonna have to get really good. If I'm meeting with the seller, like, think about my fiduciary responsibility. Am I really gonna be keeping true to my fiduciary responsibility to a seller if I go, hey, screw the buyer's agent? Just pay me the 6, or pay me 5, or pay me 4, or pay me 3, or pay me 2, whatever the number is, and let them handle it, okay? How many buyers are not gonna be able to qualify for that property anymore because they don't have the funds? And maybe that buyer, see, a lot of times the buyer that pays you the most is the one that needs the property the most, right? And so, like, for example, you may have a seller and the offer that you get in is saying, hey, we need $10,000 in closing cost. Hey, we understand you guys need $10,000 in closing costs, and that's going to help you guys buy the house. But let's say their offer on my $250,000 listing is $220,000, right? Hey guys, if you really need the $10,000 in seller concessions, why don't we bring that offer back to $250,000? So we're really settling here at $240,000. That's fair for my seller. They're okay with walking away at that $240,000. If you guys are willing to pay the $250,000 and get the $10,000 in concessions, well, that actually gets the deal done, right? But now if that person has to pay for representation out of their pocket versus it being kind of in the deal, then now they're in a position where the seller may not get the best buyer who's willing to pay the most for the property. The best buyer is not always the most qualified buyer or the buyer with the most money in their pocket. It's the one who's willing to get the biggest loan or pay the most amount for that property, because that's what the seller is looking for. The person that can close the deal and pay the most money in the shortest amount of time. And so if an agent is thinking, hey, I'm going to go to my sellers now and say, hey, I'll keep my commission and we're not going to offer a commission out to a buyer's agent anymore, and this is going to benefit you in the long run, you are going to start to limit the amount of qualified buyers that can purchase. And who in here thinks that buyer deserves a representation? Right? I think the buyers deserve representation, right? And some of the media was saying, well, you know, buyers have never represented, buyers agents haven't been representing buyers right because they don't care about anything but their commission. Oh my God, have you never seen our contract? I mean, and when we are doing buyer contracts, we have buyer contracts going on right now where we negotiated $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 off the price. We already know we're going to get paid that commission based on you know what was shown to us. Now it's really just making sure we're getting the best deal for our buyer, and that the listing agent's job is to get the best deal for the seller, right? Okay, so the settlement creates a release of liability for over 1.5 million of NAR's members, and some of the companies are still defendants in the case, and MLS associations can change the rules to be included in the release of liability by paying a fee per subscriber to the settlement fund. You were going to ask a question?
If we negotiate a deal as a buyer's agent, if the sales price is going down, in most cases our commission is going down with it because we're negotiating with them.
That is true, right? So it's like an agent, you know, and we're talking about like not a ton of money here, right? And that's why there's a, you know, we don't have to get into like in the weeds with it, but it's like, if it's kind of like when a seller says, hey, I know we're only going to be able to sell it for $250 like you said it was probably going to sell for, but we wanted to start at $275. But now, since we actually are selling for $250, are we going to reduce can you reduce your commission? Well, my commission got reduced when we went from $275 to $250, just like your net equity went down. And it kind of just goes down in correlation with those things. But it's kind of hard for a seller to understand that if they do not have the right agent explaining and really good and really having the skill set to be able to explain these things. And there may be some questions on my live feed, and we'll get to some of those questions at the end. I'll have DP kind of look on Facebook at the end of this. So if any of you guys have questions, if you think I'm absolutely wrong about anything I'm saying, if you think this, and that, all those things are definitely fine. I'm a human being. I'm not an attorney. I am just a man that is reading and looking into this information and responding the best way I feel about it, right? And so number 4, what does this mean for buyers and sellers? I think this is really, like, I actually give a damn about the buyers and sellers, and this was the largest amount of bullet points I had in this entire segment, right? And so buyers may need to pay for their representation out of pocket, leading some to initially try to navigate the process on their own. And so what I mean by that is that if sellers begin to limit the compensation they're going to offer to a listing agent, and that listing agent is not offering any commission to a buyer's agent, or that seller says, hey, I want you to get paid, but I want that buyer to have to pay that buyer's agent on their own. I don't want it to come from you. Okay, well then buyers may need to pay for their representation out of pocket on those listings, leading to some to initially try to navigate the process on their own. But I think they're going to get into some muddy waters. There's a reason why you pay a professional, right? Sellers may keep the savings. Sellers may keep the savings from the removed buyer's agent commission, potentially impacting the final sales price of the properties. Hey guys, if you think that a seller is going to try to pay less commission and give the buyer a better deal, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. If you know your house is worth $250, right? Regardless of commission, you know the market value is $250. Are you going to want, and you know that buyers are willing to pay $250? Do you think the seller's going to say, I'm going to give you guys a deal? I doubt it. They want to get the most money possible. They're looking to take that money wherever they're moving to and capitalize on that net income, right? Next thing on here, if listings do not offer a commission for buyer's agents and buyers cannot afford to pay for representation, they may not receive the representation they deserve, creating opportunities for poorly handled sales, failed negotiations, missed opportunities, and I actually think lawsuits. Because just imagine if somebody's in a position where they're a buyer and this new market that they think is going to happen is going to be one in which only the buyers are paying the commission, because that's not what the NAR settlement is even about. It's just about disclosing the commission. But that's kind of where all the media and what everybody's talking points are, right? If that person has to come in there and represent themselves, and they're not used to a transaction, they're not used to buying and selling real estate, and they really just don't know, they're ignorant to the process because they don't do it every day. They're regular folks, they work a real job, they have a family, they have all these other things going on other than mastering the real estate process, right? And they go and buy a property and it turns out that the deal wasn't what they thought it was. What do you think they may do? They may go get an attorney. They may go get a lawyer after the fact, and there could be more lawsuits from this, I actually think. And so, you know, I think that it's really not going to end up working out that way. Now, while buyers may initially attempt to navigate the process on their own, many will eventually realize the value of having an agent. I think regardless, like let's say if that was the new norm, where there was no buyer's agent compensation unless the buyers were going to pay for it, and that was the new norm, right? Over time, what we've learned is that buyers are in a better position when they're represented by the right agent. The agent that actually is competent, knows what they're doing, is genuinely just trying to do the best job for them. They're going to come out with a better outcome. Is that worth paying that agent? And I think that the majority of people will say, of course it is, right? Now, do they want to have to go and pay an extra whatever thousands of dollars it could be for that representation? Does anybody want to go and have $1,000 dinner and have to pay for it? No. But are you going to have to? Yeah, you know what I mean? And then where are you going to go if you want that kind of experience where it's free or where it doesn't cost anything? It doesn't really happen. You can't, if you go to Mastro's and you want the whole deal, they're going to ask for what? They're going to ask for money. Yeah, they're going to ask for your card. Hey, we need to swipe this thing, right? And so if you want a certain level of service, I think that buyers are going to find out if that's the way the market or the business moved, they're going to be willing to pay for it. And it's just going to be the new norm. Again, I think it's market dependent, guys. This is based on the market. The more supply there is in the marketplace, the more reasonable it is for a seller to say, hey, I'm willing to pay the right commissions to get the right results. And I think we're not in that COVID market where everybody from the West Coast and East Coast are moving to Texas, or moving in these other states, right? It's not really happening like that anymore. Let me see what else where I'm at on here. Agents should be prepared for more educated and savvy clients who understand the importance of representation. Okay? Let me read that again real quick. Agents should be prepared for more educated and savvy clients who understand the importance of representation, because there is a lot of buyers in the marketplace up to this point that will be working with 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 different agents, right? And they're not committed to one, and they're wasting a lot of these agents' time away from their business, time away from their family, right? They're losing out on income because the person is not loyal. Well, now these buyers are gonna go, I need to make sure I'm working with the right, if I'm gonna be paying an agent, or there is more of a possibility that I have to actually pay the agent, I better be working with somebody who can showcase their services and what they offer at a very high level, because I'm not just gonna sign a buyer's rep agreement with somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, right? And so you're gonna have to show that value, and you're gonna have to understand your position even stronger, okay? Next thing on here is that at the end of the day, okay? At the end of the day, sellers are looking to net the most money possible. If sellers think that not offering a commission to a listing agent that can therefore be split with a buyer's agent will net them the most money, they may have a change of heart after going through that process. And the reason why I say that is this. We list so many properties on a daily basis that expired with agents that were reducing their fees. Now, that's okay. They can have a reduced fee in comparison to ours. But the reason why we're sitting with them at the kitchen table is because that other agent didn't get the job done. Think about for sale by owners. How many, like 92, 94% of for sale by owners end up ultimately selling with the real estate agent? If it works so great, why wouldn't it be 94% actually sold their property and only 6% listed with an agent? People have always had the ability to sell by owner. Why doesn't it work? It doesn't work for an assortment of reasons. But I'll tell you what, it's kind of like, reminds me of somebody's deal in here. One of our deals that we got going on, unfortunately, the buyer and the seller started talking. When the buyers and sellers start talking, the sellers will go, in the beginning of the deal, the sellers are like, screw them, they better pay me the most money possible. And then they go and have a good talk with Kathy, and Kathy's talking to John, and now John's like, I think we need to give them a deal. And they'll start reducing their price down, and you'll start finding that they're not that good at negotiating. And then later they're like, dang, I think we screwed up. We got that relationship going on, and I didn't want to look like an asshole, right? Just imagine, this is why attorneys are in their position. Think about a divorce, right? I can imagine somebody could be getting a divorce, and the husband and the wife, if they were to work it out with themselves, maybe one of them is getting screwed over more than the other because they really can't hold their own weight in the conversation, and they kind of get bullied into it. But then they get a good person representing them, and what happens? They have a way better chance of getting what is more fair out of the deal, right? And I just think that's the way things end up working out in the long run, right? And so, let me reread that, and then I'm going to get into this. At the end of the day, sellers are looking to net the most money possible. If a seller thinks that not offering a commission to a listing agent that can then maybe be split with the buyer's agent will net them the most money, they may have a change of heart going through that process. And I said they may. I'm not saying that that's for certain. I'm not saying that's a fact, but I find that from thousands of transactions, working with tons of agents, that it's kind of the way it ends up working. You kind of get what you pay for at the end of the day, and sometimes it's based on the market. If the market is super, super hot, right, somebody may have a better chance of selling by owner, of course. If there is a huge amount of demand and a lack of supply, right, somebody could say, oh, well, I didn't need an agent in 2021. I sold it by myself, right? And they did, and good for them. But I've had people that said they did that, and then I looked up the market information, and I go, oh, you did sell it. And you got the $350,000, but the one down the street got $390. The one down the street got $410. The other one got $385. The other one got, whatever the case was. And they may say they still paid a buyer's agent commission on the deal. And then you look at the numbers and you go, you left $10,000 on the table. You left $20,000 on the table. You left $40,000 on the table. Some people feel like they're winning, but they don't even know the game or the lengths of the game that they're really in. You know what I mean? And it's just that perspective, and maybe changing that perspective, or having the agent who's skilled enough to, in a very transparent and clear way, give the information may make that person think a little bit differently and change their perspective, okay? There is a reason why for sell by owner listings, flat fee listings, and lowered compensation listings have a higher rate of failure, sell for less, etc. And it really boils down to you get what you pay for. The services tend to be limiting, resulting in limited results, right? I remember when I first started selling real estate and prospecting and lead generating, my big thing was for sell by owners, right? And I was so much in fear of prospecting that I was like, I'm gonna call the people that hate agents the most, right? And I would look at the real estate companies that would act as a limited service brokerage for the sellers. And these are companies that will like list your home for $250 or $500, right? What I would do is I would bring out the stats from the top flat fee brokerages in town and compare them to my statistics. And what do you know? In most cases, pretty much all cases, their listings were on the market for 9+ months, little activity, high failure rate. Like, I remember at the time that this one, I'm not going to mention the company because it still exists. It's not as big as it once was. But I remember that like 75% of their listings would ultimately get listed by a more traditional real estate agent who had to charge more because they offered more services, right? And so at the end of the day, there's a reason why, for sell by owners or these lowered, and again, this just showcases the fact that there's never been a standard commission to begin with because there's always been these services that are out there, right? But if the market is a more normal market where there is not as much demand and the supply is starting to build up, you find that limited service will ultimately give you limited results. And as a consumer or a buyer or seller in the marketplace, you have to make an educated decision on who you want to be working with and what kind of results you're really looking to have. If somebody says, hey, you know what? I got a year to get my home sold, Sharon. And so I'm going to start off with a flat fee company for 6 months. And if it doesn't sell, I'll pay somebody more money to get the job done. But I got a little bit of time. Let me see if I can get what I want out of it. Hey, go do that, right? But if you only have 6 months or 4 months or 90 days or 30 days for somebody to get the job done, and you think that you're going to look to pay somebody the least amount of money and that person's going to put you in the right position moving forward, it's a big gamble. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. It really doesn't matter, right? And so the impact of these changes depends on the current market. In markets with 3 months supply or less, homes sell faster, and you'll see a lot of these new companies offering reduced fees. Those kind of companies will emerge, right? Kind of what I was talking about before. You'll find that when there is a huge amount of demand and a low amount of supply, all these new real estate companies start popping out, right? And it could be like a flat fee company. It could also be like an open door. Remember, they knew that the demand was so high that they'll pay you a price for the home knowing that in 30, 60, 90 days, they could sell it for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 more because the market was going crazy, right? Now, are those companies buying more properties right now or less? Because the market has changed, right? And so a lot of this is going to be market dependent. This is what we really need to be talking about, right? So however, this does not necessarily mean that the sellers net more money. When the supply is 3 months or more, these companies fade away due to the increased skills and effort required to find a willing and able buyer. The current market is more normalized. In a normal market, when there is more supply than demand, it highly benefits most sellers to pay accordingly to get the best outcome, the best buyer, and the best price, right? The question sellers need to be asking themselves, like this is a question you need to be asking the sellers, but ultimately, guys, if you own a property, this is the kind of questions that you need to be asking yourself if you own a property, right? The question that you need to be asking, or they need to be asking themselves, is are you married to the idea of not paying a particular commission, or in reality, are you just looking to net the most money possible? And if working with the right agent for the right fee nets you more money, right? It nets you more income and gives you the opportunity to sell in a faster time frame. Which one would you choose to do? Would you rather offer no compensation, or would you rather offer compensation? It's the same thing I ask a for sale by owner. If I'm talking to a for sale by owner, hey, Mr. For sale by owner, I can appreciate the fact that you guys want to sell by owner and you want to save some commission. Now, the real question I really want to get to, Mr. For sale by owner, is are you married to the idea of selling this home on your own? Or in reality, are you just looking to net the most money? Well, I just want to net the most money. Of course you do. And if by meeting with me today for 30 minutes, I can showcase why you'll net more money working with me versus doing what you've been doing or working with other kinds of agents in the marketplace, would you list your property with me at that time if you felt I explained that properly? Of course I would. So when are we going to get together? Is that 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, right? It's that same kind of a question for sale by owner. But now I think all homeowners need to ask themselves that question. If it's worth me paying a commission to net more money, should I go that route or should I offer no commission or not worry about any commission and not paying any commission and have a possibility of netting less, right? And so the question seller needs to ask themselves, are you married? I already went through that, right? And so number 5, what skills agents need to learn in order to explain the new rules? Agents need to improve their communication skills to effectively explain the changes to these clients. They also need to adapt at negotiating commissions and articulating their value proposition to clients, right? Now, we know this. We will hire an agent who has some experience, and they'll come into the office, and I'll go, what's your listing presentation look like? And they're like, what? I don't really have a presentation, right? Like, I know we had Diego go last week, and Diego killed it, even though, like, he just got here, and it was the best presentation for somebody who really kind of didn't have a presentation, and he did it so well. But we know that, like, 99 out of 100 times when somebody doesn't have a presentation, they do. It's just their presentation is like, I hope they like me. I hope these people like me. Oh, they got 4 kids that are going to be here for the entire presentation. This is great. And then they ultimately just ask, well, what do you guys want to sell the home for? Oh, we want $500,000. The home is worth $250,000. Hey, let's go ahead and sign the contract so I can get you what you want, right? And then what happens is 6 months later, we got to call them and we got to get the deal done, right? And so we have to understand that in all cases, no matter what era, no matter what years, agents who typically close a low amount of transactions do not have a strong presentation. And so you need to always consistently be working on your presentation at a high level so you can articulate, right? So you know how to articulate your value proposition to your clients, right? Number 6 on here is opportunity for agents. Agents can capitalize on the opportunity by focus on getting listings, which can lead to cultivating buyers who may turn to sellers in the future, right? The beautiful thing about us guys at Proagent is we're listing dominant. We focus on servicing listings at a high level. Do we work with tons of buyers? Of course we do, right? But we always have understood that listing agents are the employers of the industry, right? They're the employers of the industry, and buyers agents have always been the employees. This also goes to show why it's the listing agent and the listing brokerage who's paying the buyer's commission to begin with, right? Because they already set a fee with that seller and they're willing to pay a certain percentage, giving them the opportunity to kind of employ these buyer's agents to bring their best willing and able buyer into the mix so they can, offer what they want to offer and see if we go with that offer, okay? They also need to adapt to negotiating commissions and articulate. I already said that. So agents can capitalize on the opportunity to focus on listings. The next one is the changes will force the general public. I love this. The changes will force the general public to understand the true value of agents, separating those who need a professional to represent them from those who can navigate the process on their own. See, I actually think this is going to be a time in this real estate era that we're in right now where the agents that are unskilled, that do not know the ins and out of the business at the level that they would like to think they do, they're going to be getting kicked to the curb because buyers and sellers are going to distinctively know when they're working with a true professional, whether that professional has a huge track record or not. They're going to be able to see. This is why a lot of our agents that can be brand new, the sellers will call us or they'll leave comments saying, oh my gosh, I was her first seller. You would have thought I was her 100th seller. Because with the right training and coaching, no matter if it's a brand new agent or a seasoned veteran, it's going to give them the ability to give their clients the confidence they need to work that transaction with them, right? And so number 7, need for education and adaptation. Agents need to educate themselves about the new rules and adapt their business practices accordingly, okay? This includes being prepared for different types of clients and transactions, such as those where the buyer pays for the representation directly. Now, I'm going to open this because what's going to happen, guys, tomorrow we are going live. Michelle Wilson and Chad Cooley and I are going to be live at 1 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Pacific, and 2 o'clock Eastern time. If anybody's watching this, guys, if you want the Zoom link to that, make sure you send me a PM and I will get you the Zoom link for that meeting. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down some more of this. What, did I do something wrong?
It's DM.
Huh?
DM.
It's PM. On Facebook, it's PM. On Facebook, it's PM. Instagram is DM. Who cares?
What is PM?
Private message.
Oh, private message.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Yeah. The younger they are, they don't. You don't have Facebook. These young people don't even work Facebook, right? Old people like me are like, man, y'all still on the Facebook, right? And so we're going to be going live, but we're going to be going really deep in what scripts and what dialogues you need to be utilizing to create clarity for the buyers and sellers in the marketplace, right? You have to know what to say and how to say it to get them the best results. And in turn, you're gonna get the best results. I live by this. If you help people get what they want out of life, you're always gonna get what you want. If you help people get what they want out of life, you're always going to get what you want. And as professionals, we're just going to look out as our fiduciary responsibility, or how strong we believe our fiduciary responsibility is for our buyers and sellers in the marketplace. If we look out for them, we're going to be okay, right? You're going to see a lot of people that try to do this selfish craze of like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go list these properties for X% and I'm not offering anything to a buyer, and they're going to think that they're going to reap all the benefits and they're going to make all the profits with the seller and that the deal is going to be great, but then they're going to be sitting there on the market and the home may not be selling because they got a little bit selfish. There's going to be new companies that come out with this kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of BS gimmicks that kind of creep into the space, right? But what's going to stand the test of time? It's going to be the true professionals. The true professionals that are doing the best job they can for the buyers and sellers in the marketplace, okay? And there's a lot of work. People, sometimes they go, oh, agents don't have to do too much. There are certain transactions where maybe it took a lot less work than another one. However, you're not paying for the time, you're paying for the skill set, right? If you're a doctor, your attorney, your real estate agent can get the best results in a short amount of time. You're paying for them because of that experience, right? The worst thing that can happen is they get you the wrong results and it takes too much time and you still got to pay for it and pay the consequences, right? You really pay for it that way. What are some questions? And please look in the comments. I don't know if anybody's, what are some questions? Somebody's going to say, Chris, I'm wrong, or whatever. I don't care.
Kayla asked if that's always been the case, then what exactly changed about the commission?
Yeah, great question. The real only change here is that the commission is no longer after June, July, and we still don't know if this is going to be the case, Kayla. We like the rules still have to come out. It's going to take some time, but what it looks to be the case is that when you go on the MLS to search for properties for a buyer, you are not going to see that commission in there anymore, where it usually shows on the bottom, hey, we're offering 3%, 2%, 1%, 0%, whatever it is. There's always been a variety of compensation that's been on there. There's never been a standard on there, right? And so that's not going to be on there. It's not going to be publicized anymore. You, Kayla, are now going to have to go, okay, well, I'm showing these 5 properties. My clients already have these sets of questions based on these properties. And when I'm asking those questions to that listing agent, I'm going to need to find out what they're compensating us for bringing you a willing and able buyer. And then they're going to let you know. And again, I think because of the current market and how typical markets work, they're going to continue to offer a commission. Trust me, when I sell my listings, when I sell my personal properties, guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be offering a commission. Hey, sometimes you may even want to offer more than what is the typical amount that you're seeing in your particular marketplace, because what you do is you're going to get more eyeballs on the property. You're going to have more people bringing buyers to the property. And in reality, if your listing is offering 0 commission and that agent goes, hey, buyer, we need to sign this buyer's rep agreement, and the property you like isn't paying me any commission, you're gonna have to pay me this fee, and the buyer can't do it, there's a good chance that now that buyer is gonna be unrepresented going for that property, and they may not like the outcome, or they may not buy that property to begin with and go somewhere where the agent is being compensated because they really want a great agent representing them, right? I think that's gonna be the way it works out. Like, I know I had a lot of times where I'm stumbling over a lot of this stuff because it's a lot of information, and it's still kind of new to a lot of us. I hope that I was still clear enough for you guys to get a lot of great points from this, eliminate some of the fear out of this, and tomorrow we're going to be working on, what are the scripts and dialogues to clearly communicate what's happening so that buyers and sellers can make the best educated decision for themselves on whether they want to work with us or not. Fair enough? All right, thank you guys.